Amen. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. It's good to have you here. We're in the book of Daniel. We're on lesson 8. We have essentially concluded chapter 1 of Daniel and all the background involved in it. And we are going to do a very quick review, and the review is going to be simply reading it and then talking about what the key points are, and then plunge right into chapter 2. So here's my contact information. Some of you are using it, and that's great. I want to get to know you better, and the best way to get to know you is to have you call me and say, I read this in Daniel, and this doesn't make sense to me. Can you help me understand it? Can you point me in the right direction? Thank you for those of you who have called. I appreciate doing that. Today, we're going to talk about chiasmic structure, and I'm sure all of you know what that is. You're very familiar with that. You've probably never heard of the word before, but Daniel is the best example of biblical literature of chiasmic structure. The other book that is very, very large in chiasmic structure is none other than the Book of Mormon. Okay? The third book that uses chiasmic structure, you going to guess what it is? It's the Quran. So chiasmic structure is a particular type of structure that occurs in religious literatures. And we're going to look at that and see how it's portrayed in Daniel. And you're going to be surprised that you know what this is. A United States president was very famous for use of chiasmic structure in his speeches. And his name was John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And he used it a lot. And we're going to look at some of his quotes. And then we'll look at some examples in Joel and examples in Daniel. Then we're going to move into chapter 2 and look at Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And this is what we're going to talk about. Probably the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to be talking about this statue. We're going to talk about the head of gold, which represents Babylon. Then we're going to talk about the chest and arms of silver, which represent the Medo-Persian Empire of Darius and Cyrus. Then we're going to talk about now, you've been taught it's belly and thighs of bronze. It's not belly and thighs. It's belly and rear. The word used in the Hebrew is rear. It's not thighs. Thighs are part of the legs. Okay, the thighs are not bronze on that statue. The thighs are actually iron. So that's something we'll straighten out. Then we have the legs of iron, the feet of iron and clay represented by 10 toes, and then the stone that breaks the statue into pieces. So that's going to take us several weeks to go through all of that and understand what that means. And we're going to look at that in great detail. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want you to just sit back for a minute and listen as I read to you. Or better yet, as you guys read it. Let's get 3 readers. And I'm going to have 3 of you read a part of Daniel chapter 1 aloud. So if you're comfortable reading, volunteer. If you're not, then don't volunteer. And let's just listen to what Daniel 1 has taught us before we go in to Daniel chapter 2. Can I have a volunteer, please, to read? Okay? I'd like you to read from verse 1 of chapter 1 through the end of verse 7. Go ahead.
In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord handed Jehoiakim, king of Judah, over to him, along with some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasury of his God. Then the king told Ashpenaz, the chief of his officials, to bring in some of the sons of Israel, including some of the royal family and of the nobles, youths in whom there was no impairment, who were good-looking, suitable for instruction in every kind of expertise, endowed with understanding and discerning knowledge, and who had ability to serve in the king's court. And he ordered Ashpenaz to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. And the king also allotted for them a daily ration from the king's choice food and from the wine which he drank, and ordered that they be educated for 3 years, at the end of which they were to enter the king's personal service. Now among them, from the sons of Judah, were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Then the commander of the officials assigned new names to them, and to Daniel he assigned the name Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego.
Great, thanks. That's it. Stop. So what translation are you reading from?
NASB.
Okay. You'll notice it was different from what the King James has. Okay. And there are some significant differences. One of the significant differences, instead of calling them eunuchs, it calls them officials. Okay. So it takes that part of the story away because nobody wants to talk about the ugliness of castration in that. So that's been changed there. And also, this says that they might stand before the king at the end of verse 5, and I think that's something a little different.
In which they were to enter the king's personal service.
Okay. If you look at the Hebrew, that they might stand before the king, the wording here in the Hebrew is that they might be examined by the king. So those are two very different, completely different translations of the meaning of those words, and the Hebrew is as this says. So I just want you to be aware of, it's not an important difference, but it's a difference. And it's something for you to be aware of. They were going to be examined by Nebuchadnezzar. And that's what you missed there in that translation. Okay, can I have a second volunteer? All right, the second volunteer will take us from verse 8 through the end of verse 16.
But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse likening than the children which are of your sort? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king. Then Daniel said to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had sent over to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse.
All right, great. Stop. Thank you. And I need a third reader to finish the chapter out. Go ahead.
As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued ever unto the first year of King Cyrus.
Okay. How old would Daniel have been in the first year of King Cyrus? Does anybody know? 88 years old. Yeah. So he's an old dude. Okay. He's an old dude when we get there. Now, the other thing I want to point out about this last passage is the 4 children, all of them, including Daniel, had knowledge, skill in learning and wisdom, but Daniel, only Daniel, not the other 3, had understanding in all visions and dreams. So Daniel was the only one who could do the visions and dreams. I just want to leave that thought with you because we're going to see that when the testing comes. Daniel's the only one. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego cannot interpret the king's dreams. Only Daniel can do that. Okay? All right, so that's chapter 1. Does anyone have any questions about it? We've been through it in great detail. I think you should be very comfortable with the content. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, so now I'm going to give you a little pictorial from history of artist's view of certain events in this first chapter. So here's one. What are we seeing here?
Two guards and 2 youths.
Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4 youths. Right? You want to borrow these? Okay. 4 youths, all right, and the guards. So this is Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego being brought in to Babylon. And here they're awed by the wonder of the city. Now, this is interesting. Has anyone ever been here? Has anybody ever visited Babylon today? Okay, this is what you see when you go there. Saddam Hussein actually had this arch rebuilt with the blue and the gold and everything that you see there. So he actually rebuilt that in the city when he was in charge of things over there. Then what's happening here? Yeah, refusing to be defiled. Right, good. And what's happening here? What's that?
Pleading with them that he wants to not defile himself.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is the examination by Nebuchadnezzar of Daniel. Okay, all right, good. So that's chapter 1. Now you have a sheet, and let me find it. I believe it's 24. So if you'll turn to 24. We're going to take a look at a few scriptures here that give us a review of what is in Daniel chapter 1. And I wanted you to see it from a New Testament perspective. So we've read it in the Old Testament. Now I'm going to give you some key pictures from the New Testament that emphasize what's in Daniel chapter 1. The first thing is Matthew 5:13. This says, "Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men." If Daniel were to say this, he'd say the salt must remain salty and not lose its usefulness, refuse assimilation, refuse to be defiled. So this is the concept. If the salt becomes defiled and has lost its saltiness, what's it good for? Nothing. And so Daniel is saying, I'm going to stay salty. That's another way to look at it. Okay? James 3:11 and 12 says, "Doth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries? Either a vine, figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh?" God's people must walk consistently and not compromise to the world. Now, when Daniel said he wanted to eat pulse and not meat, he was saying more than physical pulse and physical meat. There's a spiritual application to this too. Okay? Meat represented the richness of man, the richness of Nebuchadnezzar. Pulse represented what God had commanded them to do, so they would not be defiled. So we're not just talking about turning down a Chick-fil-A sandwich. We're talking about a spiritual application that goes much beyond meat and pulse. Okay? Matthew 5:14 through 16. "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light to shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." God's people must shine before men and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Do not be assimilated. Now, what is the purpose of a boat? A boat, B-O-A-T. What's the purpose of a boat? Okay. And what does it do as you're traveling across the water?
It
It keeps you dry. The purpose of a boat is to keep you dry. Okay? So if you're in this boat and you're out on the horizon and I start punching holes into the hull of that boat, what's going to happen? You're going to get wet. And it's going to sink down and no longer be distinctive. And it's going to eat the king's meat like everybody else and drink the king's wine like you see the application? Okay? We must keep our distinction as Christians. What does the Bible call that? It calls it holiness. Be holy, be set apart, be separate. This is a call for holiness. And when Daniel says, I'm not going to be defiled, what he's proclaiming is, I'm holy and I'm set apart by God, and I'm not going to do anything that confronts that holiness. I'm not going to be absorbed into your world. James 1:27, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this. Now here's going to give us a definition of undefiled. To visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction and to keep himself unspotted from the world. What is that saying? Pulse, not king's meat and king's wine. Keep yourself distinct. Be peculiar. That's what God wants you to be. He wants you to be different from the world. Wide is the path to destruction, and narrow is the path, the way to salvation. Be distinct. That's what Daniel's teaching us. I don't want you to miss that. 1 Peter 2:9. Ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. God's people are a peculiar people, called out of darkness into light. So you should not only live in light and not darkness, but you should be a light for others and not darkness. This is the lesson of Daniel chapter 1, that very few people summarize it this way. But I wanted to relate it to the New Testament for you so you can see how it connects to these New Testament scriptures. As we close our study of Daniel 1, what do we need to do in America today? Be distinct, not be defiled. Be undefiled. Now I'm going to show you something really interesting. We're going to look at Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah and what their names mean. Daniel's name means judgment, all right? And that's discernment. We need discernment today. Hananiah's grace means mercy. God says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Mishael's conviction is honesty. We need the truth, not lies. And Azariah's help is charity. We need to love one another and help one another through life. In the definitions of their names, there's a hidden lesson. So what do we need to do in America today is have discernment, mercy, honesty, and charity or love. That's what Daniel 1 teaches. And as Paul Harvey would say, now you know the rest of the story. Some of you know what I mean. Others of you have no idea who Paul Harvey is. Yes.
John,
Yes, sir.
that's introducing Jesus Christ, right? Before the foundation of the world. If you say all that this is just mentioned,
Yes.
that's Christ. He draws, King James says he draws us from the darkness.
Mercy, honesty, love. Yeah, that sounds like Jesus Christ to me. Yeah. Okay.
He draws us from the darkness. Like the salvation. That's it, Lord.
So we, as Christians, in a world today that wants us to be assimilated and indoctrinated, we need to refuse. And we need to stand our ground and be faithful to God. That last line, is what Daniel chapter 1 is all about. And Daniel's example is, I will not be defiled. All right. Any questions? Now keep in mind, the Old Testament is given us to help us see the coming of the New Testament. There are 330 references in the Old Testament to the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. So the Old Testament is there to study, to help us see Christ coming. All right, does anyone have any questions or any clarification on Daniel chapter 1? Anyone? All right. Now let's talk about structure of the book of Daniel. Now you will find this on page P25. P25. The book of Daniel is structured as a chiasm. Does anybody know what a chiasm is? You guys have had these handouts for a while. Did anybody look it up? What is a chiasm? Who knows?
It's a pattern of writing text in which you repeat a thought or beginning and end of it, and you kind of work your way towards a central message, and then slowly work your way back out.
Okay, good, good. Can you give me an example? Think of John Kennedy.
Yeah. Ask not what you can do for your country, but what your country can do for you.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Okay, that's a chiasm. My daughter's name is a chiasm. It's A, N, and then it reverses. N, A, Anna. Okay, my granddaughter name is also a chiasm. That's Hannah. So that's what a chiasm is. And Daniel is loaded with them. Yes.
Isn't that called a palindrome or something?
Yes, but not all palindromes are chiasms. But a palindrome is a form of chiasm. The book of Daniel is presented in a presentation in which the order is given, then there's usually a central thought, and then the order is reversed as you come back out. And it teaches you the same thing twice. What is that for? To increase your retention. So whenever you see a biblical verse in chiasmic structure, God is telling you this is important for you to memorize and remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's a chiasm. Anna is a chiasm. A-N-X-N-A is a chiasm. Abba, the name for Christ, for daddy, for father. That's an Aramaic chiasm. Okay? Chiasms aid in memorization because of their element of repetition, and repetition results in retention. The more you repeat it, the more you will retain it. We walk our dog every day down our street, and we get to a real busy street. And we always turn before we get to the busy street. And he's done this 200 times. So we tried an experiment today. We took the collar off. We walked down, and Ginny and I turned. He didn't have his collar on or his leash. He turned right with us. He got it. Repetition resulted in retention. Okay? When the going gets tough, what did John Thomas say in 1953? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. That's a chiasm. Let us never negotiate out of fear. John F. Kennedy. But let us never fear to negotiate. And I've given you this written in the text here, and you can fill in the blanks. And his most famous one, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And this one, we don't hear this quoted very much, but it's one of his most important things. Mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. Again, John Kennedy. He used chiasms very effectively, or his speechwriter did, at least. That one isn't in your handout. I'm just adding that one on. All right. I love this one by Benjamin Franklin, and I quote this often. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And you know this guy? You recognize this guy from Star Wars movies? He speaks in chiasms. When you look at the dark side, careful you must be, for the dark side looks back. Okay? You show interest in the dark side's going to come for you. So you like what you see? I got lots more. Come with me. Chiasms. The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. That's Mark 2:27. Now let's look at this one, and we're going to see a little different twist to this. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. Do you see how it flips? Words are a little different, but the chiasmic structure is still there. Psalms 3:7-8. Save me, O my God, for thou hast smitten all my enemies on the cheekbone. The teeth of the wicked thou hast broken, to Jehovah the salvation. Now look up here with me. I want to show you this one in pieces. This one's a little harder to see until I show it to you, and then you say, oh yeah. Save me, salvation. Oh my God, Jehovah. Smitten all my enemies, the teeth of the wicked thou hast broken. Do you see it? Words are a little different. Clearly chiasmatic structure. And this one, Genesis 7:21-22. All that was in the dry land died, and all flesh died. Same thing, both at the beginning and the end. This has every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and this is moved upon the earth. Okay? So we can see the chiasmic structure there as well. Joel 3 is a great example of a chiasm. And I believe, yes. Now, if you want to, you can take notes on this sheet, 25 and 26, and you can circle these so you can see how this chiasm works. Here's the chiasm. And the first says, then you will know that I, the Lord your God, dwell in Zion, my holy hill. And it closes with the Lord dwells in Zion. Does everybody see the similarity of those two expressions? That's the same as this one. Okay? Then we have Jerusalem will be holy. And down here we have Judah will be inhabited forever in Jerusalem through all generations. So this is talking about Jerusalem. Then we have never again will foreigners invade, but Egypt will be desolate. Edom will be a desert waste. See, never again foreigners will invade because there won't be them anymore. They'll be gone. And then the central thought is in that day the mountains will drip new wine. So the structure here is A and A, B and B, C and C, and the central thought is D. So that's a good example out of Joel that shows you how the chiasmic structure works. God dwells in Zion. God dwells in Zion. Jerusalem is holy. Jerusalem is preserved. Foreign invaders are banished. Foreign invaders are destroyed in the blessings of the kingdom. Does everybody see how that works? Okay. Now let's talk about the chiasms in the book of Daniel. first of all, before we go there, are you clear on what a chiasm is? Okay. Are you comfortable with the examples I've shown you? And you can recognize one now if you see it. Pretty comfortable. Okay. Daniel chapters 1 through 7 are listed here. And 4 and 5 are both talking about divine deliverance by angels. 3 and 6 are talking about tribulation and testing. 2 and 7 are talking about kingdom rule. That's clearly chiasmic. So if you want to take the example in the middle of page 26, you want to put these little brackets on here, it'll show you the alignment. I would do that on your handout and put those brackets on. So you can see that for 1 through 7, beginning with 2. 2 aligns with 7, 3 with 6, and 4 with 5. Daniel chapters 7 through 12. Kingdom rule 7, kingdom rule 12. Tribulation and testing 8 and 11. Divine intervention 9 and 10. So there's another chiasm. Good. You getting it? All right. You can see I've studied this a little bit. Years ago, my pastor asked me to teach Daniel. And I said, well, I need time to prepare. He says, how much time do you need to prepare? He says, I'd like you to start next month. I said, I need a year. I need a year to prepare. He said, really? And I said, well, why don't you teach it? He says, you got a year. So now let's do something interesting here. Watch up here for a minute. This one, Daniel's 1 through 7, is written in Aramaic from 2:4 to 7:28. So this first piece is written in Aramaic, and this second piece is written in Hebrew. That's interesting too. So we have the lower portion in Hebrew and the front portion in Aramaic. So even different languages are involved. So I'm going to take this. Everybody with me? And I'm going to move this up here. I'm going to take this one and move this one down there. Okay? You didn't know that was interactive like that, did you? Now watch this. Not only is 1 through 7 a chiasm and 7 through 12 a chiasm, but 1 through 12 is a chiasm also. And it also has an internal chiasmic structure. Now that's pretty cool. It's like an intertwined fabric of one chiasm laid on top of another one. Because of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar writes part of the text.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't speak Hebrew.
Yeah.
Well, he may have spoken Hebrew, but he gave his oration in Aramaic. Actually, Akkadian, which is very similar to Aramaic.
Okay, but this structure is obviously God.
Yes, good.
But like, they didn't know what they were doing.
But God did.
Yeah. How long has this been like known?
Has what been known?
This chiasm among us, like you. Recent?
I don't think it's recent. No, it's been.
Figure this out, like,
Oh no, I think people have known this for centuries. Yeah.
Evidence of them using it in like old English poems and
Yeah.
European poems.
But I'm making a point here. This is beyond human design. Okay. Not only is the words of the book important, but even the structure screams of God's hand and God's design. That's my point. Okay. So the book of Daniel is fearfully and wonderfully made, even more than you knew. as I've shown you this now. Okay? It's built to maximize your retention. It keeps repeating a message over and over so you get it, and you don't even know he's doing it. That's the amazing thing. God is amazing. How great is our God? All right. Any questions about chiasms? You'll probably never hear it again, but you got the message that God's design is not only in the words and the message, but even in the very structure of the book. To me, that is, how can you deny this is the Word of God?
Never heard this word until today.
Good. Even old dogs can learn new tricks, huh? If I can say that and get away with it. Chiasm. All right. Daniel chapter 2. Are we ready to go to the next chapter? So we're going to see this guy here a lot. And this is the dream of Nebuchadnezzar of a statue made of different materials. And this is taken fresh off the internet. And it's got a bunch of things that need to be adjusted. So if you go to the internet and you say, type in Google Nebuchadnezzar's dream statue, you're going to see this there. But there's some things I want to correct. Brass did not exist from 331 to 146 BC. Bronze did. But brass existed when the King James Bible was written, and they knew it was a yellow metal with copper and nickel in it, so they called it brass. It isn't brass, it's bronze. And the reason why that's important is because there are 3 noble metals in history that were used as coinage: gold, silver, and bronze. Brass wasn't one of them. So it needs to be bronze, and it is. So that's the first adjustment I'll make. And incidentally, yes, somewhere in here, maybe it's in that new handout, I've given you this thing. Where is it? It's in here somewhere. Pete, didn't I give you guys this? Yeah, there it is. You got it in your notes. That is worksheet P39. P39. So we're going to be a ways in getting to this. The next thing I want to amend is a lot of people say that the 10 toes represent, now they call it the divided nations of Europe. At one time, they called it the European Union. In the 1950s, when there were 10 nations in the European Union, they said 10 nations, 10 toes, it must be the European Union. How many nations are in the European Union today? 27. That isn't that. He didn't have 27 toes. Okay? This is the League of Arab Nations. And I'll make this case for you in a couple weeks, and then you can decide for yourself. I'll show you the European Union, I'll show you the League of Arab Nations, and I'll show you how one aligns and one doesn't, and then you can make up your own mind. The next correction. Most of these pictures have this meteorite coming down here. Okay? It ain't a meteorite. It's a volcanic explosion. The rock, when I say this, I get tingles, that's uncut from human hands, came from the earth and rose again to destroy the kingdoms of men. Who am I talking about? It's Jesus. You make it a meteorite. Who is it? Who knows? So it's from the earth. It's not from the sky. It's from heaven, but he came up out of the earth. So that rock that does the destruction, that's uncut from human hands, don't think of that as a meteor ever again. Think it as a rock that has come up out of the earth, just like Jesus Christ arose from the earth on the 3rd day. That makes a whole lot more sense. Jesus the Christ. Okay, so now let's go to Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. So if you'll turn there in your Bible, we're going to read it all through one time, get it in context, and then we'll start taking it apart. So I'd like 2 readers, one to read verses 1 through 6 and one to read verses 7 through 12. Who would like to be my first reader? Anyone? All right, take verses 1 through 6, please.
In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreamed. His mind was troubled and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, the sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means. Then the astrologers answered the king, may the king live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it. The king replied to the astrologers, this is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces in your houses, turned into piles of rubble. But if you tell me what the dream is and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards, great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it.
Okay, stop. So what is Nebuchadnezzar asking them for? Two things. Yeah. Tell me what the dream was. Why is he asking that question? We're going to answer that later. All right. Let's go ahead and read the rest of the chapter. Someone read verses 7 through 12 for me. I'm going to show you that. Okay. I'm going to show you that. Probably not this week, but you're going to see it very clearly. Okay. Part of the translation that he read changed the wording to make it more difficult to see that. Because Nebuchadnezzar says in verse 2, read verse 2 again.
So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king.
Okay, stop. What he had dreamed. Okay. Now, does that mean he doesn't know what he dreamed? No, he didn't. He didn't have any idea. He completely forgot it. Okay. And I'll show you that. Okay. As we go on. But we're not ready for that yet. Let's finish it and then we'll get to that as we move through. Okay. Verse 7. Who's going to read verse 7 through? Go ahead.
They answered him and said, but if you tell his servant the dream, we will show interpretation of it. He answered that I know of certainty that ye will redeem the time, because ye see the thing gone from me. But if ye will not make known.
All right, stop for a second. What did he just say? The thing is gone from me. What does that mean? I can't remember it. It's gone from me. It's left me. I don't know what it was. Go ahead.
But if ye will not make known the dream, there is but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying, rough words to speak before me, till the time ye change. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can show me the interpretation thereof.
All right, stop. So first he says, tell me what the dream was that I've forgotten. Help me remember it, and then tell me what it means. Okay, go ahead.
The Chaldean answered and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician, or astrologer, or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other than can show it before the king, except the God, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon.
Okay. So I've already shown you a little bit of the evidence about why he forgot the dream. And he wanted them to recall the dream for him and then tell. Have you ever had a dream? You wake up and you dream, but you can't remember the dream? It's very common. It's not unusual.
Someone begin to say it to you when they come back to you.
It does with me.
Okay.
It does with me. Yeah. The thing when it really gets freaky is I start telling my wife a dream I had, and she finishes it for me because she had the same dream. That's when I think, whoa, okay. Yes. Do you know the answer?
Well, I maybe a little bit.
Okay.
But so who is Nebuchadnezzar calling out to when he's asking these people.
Okay, that's a good question. No. He's calling out to the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans. And we're going to look at each one of them. And I'm going to tell you what they do and why he went to them. Okay, so we're going to look at that. There's guys, you're looking in this chapter up here, we're looking at 4 weeks of study. Okay, there's a lot of things in here that we have to go through for you to understand what this is saying. And we're going to do it systematically, slowly. Okay?
God brings dream to us, and Satan brings dreams to us. There's two ways it goes.
Okay?
Who's bringing the dream to this area? Who's dreaming? Is it God?
Okay. Because Daniel prays to God for the interpretation and God gives it to him, I'm assuming the dream came from God. But God certainly has the ability to interpret the dream Satan gives also. But I'm going to make the assumption that the way Daniel's treating it as though it came from God. So I'm accepting Daniel's assumption. He's wiser than I am. Okay? All right. Now let's identify the major themes. We're going to do this together. So you're going to take pages P26 and P27, and you're going to follow me as I underline key phrases and break these into key messages. And we're going to do it together so that you can go ahead and take the notes right on that piece of paper as we go through. So, first of all, let me ask you this. What did you hear in here? What would you say? What's one major thing? Okay, what's another one?
Wanted him to recall the dream that he forgot.
Yeah, good. What's another one?
Busy thinking about the difference between this NASB and the fact that it doesn't say that here.
It doesn't say that there. That's something for you to recognize.
Verse 8 is very different.
What does verse 8 say?
We're trying to find out if you have received that the command from me is firm.
This says, because, well, this is from the Hebrew, and I looked it up, and I'll show it to you in a couple weeks when we get there. It's clearly, he's saying, it's gone from me. Bring it back to me. That's what he's asking them. Bring it back to me. Help me remember it. Because I don't remember it anymore. It frightened me. Okay, the bed's wet. Now you can have me figure out why. Okay? You don't think it says what? That was a little addition, yeah. Okay, all right. So here are some major themes that I saw. The Babylonian king has had a troubling dream. Okay? And he calls in the wise men to show him the dream. Now, I'm going to show you what that means is to tell him what the dream was, not just interpret it for him. And then his advisor court totally fails to do that. It's the failure of the advisor court to recall and interpret his dream. We can't interpret it until you tell us what it said. And he essentially looks at them and they says, "You're a wise man? You can't tell me what I dreamt? You're phony. Heads off." That's essentially what he's saying. Okay? And then the penalty for error is severe. And the Chaldeans' response, "We can't do what you ask." No, king. This is Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the world, the top prophet of the Chaldeans, and they're telling him, no, not a good thing to do. Now, you know what the amazing thing is, what we're going to see is Daniel tells him no too. He says, but I can still get the answer for you, but it ain't going to come from me. I'm going to go get it from God and bring it to you. That's what Daniel does differently. We'll see that down the road. Okay? Everybody got those down? If you want them? I'm sorry?
ends at 6.
Well, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 was just for you to give me some examples. Okay, so use them. See, when I send you, now that you have these things, you can work them ahead if you want to and be prepared when you come here.
John,
Yes, sir.
is God telling Nebuchadnezzar that your belief, your God is not superior to me? I'm the superior God. I'm the real God. Overall picture.
Daniel, as God's messenger, is telling Nebuchadnezzar that his God, Jehovah God, is the only one. Not the real one, the only one. There is no other God. And if you look at the text, when it refers to Jehovah God, it's a capital G. When it refers to Nebuchadnezzar gods, it's a little g. Yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar's God was
Nebuchadnezzar had many gods.
main God was who?
His main god, we can say Baal. Yeah, we'll just say Baal. I think it was Marduk. Some people say the main god of the Chaldeans was Marduk, but they also worship the Baals. Muslims way later. Muslim has nothing to do with early biblical history. Muslim is a thing created by an oversexed prophet who liked to marry 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds. So that's a whole different thing. Sorry. What? What's that? Yes.
What was that the other God you just said?
Marduk,
So Marduk and
Baal,
Okay.
and Ashtaroth. There's a whole bunch of them. Yeah. There's a hierarchy of them.
So there's just all different demons and they have,
Well, I don't know that those gods are demons. I don't think those gods really exist. They're creations of men, idols that man made that aren't really existing at all. Demons exist. Demons are real. Demons are fallen angels. That's a whole different thing.
I always thought all these gods were just different. Some of these god states.
What is a demon? It's a fallen angel. Those angels were never gods.
Well, no, I know, but like,
He wants to be a god.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me go on. So this is the same thing as the text you have. And I'm going to underline in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, he dreamed dreams, and his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. He woke up. Okay. I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled. So if you want to underline those same expressions that I have underlined, you underline them too. And I'm going to summarize that by saying this: Nebuchadnezzar has had a troubling dream. That's the first subject, number one. And that's substantiated by these words. I dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled. It woke me up, and I had a troubling dream. That's the first subject. As we continue to read, I'm going to underline, the king commanded to call the magicians, astrologers, sorcerers, and Chaldeans to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood. Then spake the Chaldeans, any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean, and the Chaldeans. Chaldeans are important here. Why?
The astrologers.
Nebuchadnezzar is a Chaldean. Okay? And that's who he trusts more than anybody else. So he looks to them to be his main wise men, because that's who he's their leader. He's their boss. He's their CEO of the Chaldeans. That's why Chaldeans are so prominent here. Who's missing? Who's missing? Daniel's not in there. The new ones, the new convert, they're not in there. We'll talk about that too. Yes, Nabopolassar was a Chaldean as well. And Nebuchadnezzar was the head of the Chaldeans under his father, Nabopolassar. That's correct.
That we discussed last week. He was running the head of the army more or less.
And the advisors, because the advisors advise the army what to do. Okay, don't attack Egypt this time. Destroy the temple in Jerusalem instead. Okay. So I'm going to title that "The Wise Men Are Called In." That's the second subject. He calls in the wise men, and that's the Chaldeans, magicians, astrologers, and sorcerers. Next thing I underlined is, the thing is gone from me. Make known unto me the dream. But if you show the dream and the interpretation, show me the dream and the interpretation. Make known unto me the dream. Therefore, tell me the dream. Come on, guys. He doesn't remember the dream. He's forgotten it. And he's telling them, bring it back. Bring it back for me. Then show me the interpretation. It says it again and again and again and again and again. So I'm going to title that is, Nebuchadnezzar has forgotten the dream. Everybody with me so far? All right, the next set. I've underlined it in green. Ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. For this cause the king was very angry and very furious and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And I'm going to title that one, The Penalty for Error. I'm going to make you 6 pounds lighter. You're going to go on a spot diet, and instantaneously you're going to lose 6 pounds from the shoulders up. That's how he's going to do that. Okay? It's called the one slice diet. I do not recommend it. Ugly fat. You didn't have to put ugly in. Fat, maybe. All right, the next set is in purple. Tell thy servants the dream, and we'll show the interpretation. Tell the dream, and we'll show the interpretation. All right? So the plea of the wise men is, tell us what you dreamed. And we'll tell you something that comes to our mind. All right? And lastly, there's not a man on the earth that can show the king's matter. There is none that can show it before the king. The Chaldeans' response. We can't help you this time unless you tell us the dream. And he says, unless you want that one slice diet, you better tell me what I dreamed. So there's the major subjects. Does everybody see how I did that? Okay? Does it make sense to everybody? Is everybody comfortable with that? Because that's how we're going to proceed now and study these 6 lessons. Okay? I just wanted to see how I broke it up. Now, there's another important word that was left out of the translation that one of you read, and it was this word Syriac. Whoever read that verse for me didn't have that word Syriac in it. And it's in the original Hebrew, and that word Syriac is really important. And the reason why that word Syriac is important is it's Aramaic. And everything in front of it is Hebrew, and everything after it is Aramaic. That word separates the two pieces. When you take that word out of your translation, you lose that. Syriac is in Babylon. Yes. It's in Babylon. You know how they say Zion is in Jerusalem? Syriac is in Babylon.
So this says,
Go ahead.
Says, then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic.
Okay. Okay.
Which,
That works too, because Syriac is Aramaic. They spoke Aramaic in Syriac. So that's okay.
Syriac is a place, not the Hebrew.
No. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king, not in English, but in Syriac. It's the language. It's not in the town of Syriac, but it is a place where they speak Syriac. Okay? Yeah. If you want to speak Mexican, you're going to go to Mexico. You want to speak Spanish, you're going to go to Spain. All right? That works most of the time. That doesn't work all the time. If you go to Brazil, that's a whole different thing. We won't go there. All right. So now, the parts of Scripture that were written in Aramaic go beyond Daniel. Ezra, Daniel, and Jeremiah all have verses written in Aramaic. Okay? There's 67 verses in Ezra, 1 in Jeremiah, and 200 in Daniel, written in Aramaic. And that's at the bottom of page 27 for you. Okay? The parts of the blank there scripture that were written in Aramaic, so you'd write Aramaic in the second blank, include Ezra 4:8 and 6:18, 67 verses, and then the next blank, and so forth. Does everybody see where that fits on your handout? Is everybody aligned? You got it? Good. You okay? Okay. At the time Daniel and Ezra were written, most Jews could speak and understand Hebrew and Aramaic. Hebrew was the language they spoke at home. Aramaic was the language they spoke in the broader society that included other people. Over time, Aramaic displaced Hebrew as the primary language spoken by the Jews, although it remained Hebrew as the written language. The Jews had not learned Aramaic in Palestine. They learned it in Babylon, and they brought it back with them. They learned it while they were in exile, because it was the language of Nebuchadnezzar. Now, some scholars believe Jesus Christ spoke in Aramaic and Hebrew. And there are some references when he says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. Do you remember those words? Those are Aramaic. He's speaking in Akkadian Aramaic, the Babylonian language. Lord, Lord, why hast thou forsaken me? Those words are preserved for us in Aramaic, not Hebrew. That's interesting. The spoken language in first century Palestine, Jesus spoke in Aramaic, and the New Testament preserved it. There's several passages there, Matthew 5 and 27, Mark 5 and 7, 10, 14, that are Aramaic passages in the New Testament. So the New Testament has Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic words in it. And a lot of people don't realize that. Because of the audience to whom Jesus was speaking to. When he spoke to an audience that was primarily Aramaic, he spoke to them in Aramaic for their understanding. Okay? So it was directed to who the message was intended for in the original audience. Yes, that's correct. Yes, sir. Is Daniel in the Old Testament?
The New Testament, which Jesus is the mediator, is translated in Greek.
But it has Hebrew words and Aramaic expressions in it. It's not just Greek. That's what I'm trying to get across to you. It's more complicated than that. When Jesus is quoted in red, if you got a red letter Bible, okay, a lot of those red letters, they're Aramaic. Akkadian was the official and religious language of the Babylonians, like Hebrew was the official language of the Jews. Aramaic was what everybody spoke. Through time, Aramaic became the common spoken language during Jesus' time. And he preached sometimes using Aramaic words. And I gave you an example of that. So Aramaic was the native tongue of Jesus. Hebrew was rarely used as a spoken language in first century AD. Some of the words of Jesus, like Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani from Mark 15:34, is Aramaic words spoken by Jesus Christ to God from the cross. Boy, that was a well-timed ping, wasn't it? To emphasize things. Yes. Huh? I'm not done yet. Okay. But thank you. Yes. All right. So again, when Jesus spoke to his Father in the Garden of Gethsemane, and when in Mark, when it says Abba, Abba is an Aramaic word as well. Do you know what Abba means? Not exactly. The correct translation of Abba, you ready for this? Is daddy. Daddy. I'm not kidding. It's daddy. Yeah. When Jesus refers to his Father, he calls him daddy. That's my daddy. I think that's precious. Do you know what daddy means? When you look that word up, what Abba means, it means to hold the leg. You ever had one of your grandkids run up to you, Grandpa, and grab you by the leg? And when you walk, they're on like they're part of you. That's Abba. That's daddy. That's how Jesus sees his Father. It gives me tingles to think about how personal that is. Aramaic, yes, sir. Yep. To have a personal enough relationship with your God and Creator to call him daddy. Do you realize how special that is? It's absolutely incredible. You're not going to call Buddha daddy. Okay? In Russian, Baba is grandma. All right. So that's where we'll stop for now. And as Mr. Tobin has said, on April 23rd, I will not be able to be here. So that Wednesday night, Pete, we give everybody a break, unless you want to call a meeting of your men's group and do something else.
I'll think about it. We'll probably take a break.
Okay? But that'll probably be a good time. This stuff is going to be heavy, so. Would I be willing to bring the sword back? Absolutely. For you, yes. All right.
See it.
Okay.
Feel it.
Okay. But not be cut by it.
I think it's strongest.
No. Yes.
The oldest book in the Bible is Job, right?
I don't know that.
It is Job. Daniel, how old was Dan? How old was it BC or AD?
I'll have to check. I don't know the oldest book of the Bible. I'll look that up for you though. Is it? Okay. Huh?
It's Job.
He means as far as when it was written down.
Oh.
Not describing the events. You're right. In events, it has to be Genesis. But Job may have been written down before Genesis was. I don't know. All right. Anyone else? Any questions? So, how are we feeling? Am I overwhelming you with the material? Are we okay? All right.
Go back.
Well, there's a video that you can use. All right. Guys, what I want you to take out of this is number one, how amazing the Bible is with its words and its structures and its message. Everything about it just proclaims the glory of God. And I want you to grasp that. Okay? The second thing is, I know some people think all I need to know is the New Testament because that's about Jesus, and I don't need to worry about what's in the Old Testament. The glory of God is in the Old Testament, and you need that too. And I hope you take that from Daniel. And the other most important thing about Daniel, in Daniel 1, is don't give up, don't give in, stand. Okay? And bring glory to God in doing that. And the message in chapter 2 that we're going to see is God controls history. He is sovereign. He is omnipotent, all powerful. He is omniscient, all knowing. And we need to recognize that and just praise God for how wonderful He is and this word is. All right? That's what I want you to take from today's lesson. Does anyone have any other questions or word today?
Talk about the rock.
The rock, yes.
That's the same rock that Moses struck for.
No, sir. No, sir, it is not. No, it's not. I'm talking about the rock of ages, Jesus Christ. Okay? All right. Anyone else?